Hi there, everybody. I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for this evening, and we are back again with another episode of the Fiction Story Writing Masterclass. So, do let me know how your day has been. What all did you do? Was it productive? Anything that you would want to share with me in the chat box here? It is open for all of you, and you can definitely write to me here in the chat box. Krishna says, Hi, hello there. Thanks for dropping into the live here. And we have a wave of hellos coming up there. Thanks a lot for that. Vidyut. Um, there's another handle there. And then a lot of emojis. Thanks a lot. Krishna says that she was writing her book, and that's so very exciting to know, Krishna. You can let me know which is the genre that you're trying to attempt. Yes, and let me also tell you, Ashok Kumar Shukla gives us a like here, and there's a comment as well. Thanks a lot for dropping into the live, all of you wonderful bunch of people. I welcome you heartily to PSTV, and a very good evening. Yes, so let's get started with the episode of today. I am great. Thanks for asking. Um, Yes, I already have the weekend vibes as well, right? So I think all of us looking forward to the weekend. Yes, and again, thanks a lot for all of those messages and the good evening messages, the wave of hellos there. Thanks a lot for that. And let's get going to our episode for today and start with the fiction story writing masterclass, right? And as always, we want to unleash the writer in all of us and stir up our creativity to such an extent that we can write an interesting and an absorbing story for our audiences, whosoever they are, right? So that's the objective here. Let me also see some of the comments here. Ashok Kumar, good evening to you too. And Krishna, that sounds really interesting. Sci-fi immortality. Okay, so what's the theme like, Krishna? If you would want to share before even you have completed that book there, maybe what I can really make out is with the help of science and the advancements and technologies, you're trying to find immortality here. Is that right? And if so, then it sounds like an interesting theme, something that people would be really interested in learning and in knowing all about, right? So, as I always tell you, humanity is always driven and is always fascinated by the unknown, right? So whatever we do not know of, we are really curious to know more and more about that particular concept, and that's why sci-fi is something which really works and which is really a popular genre among people, right? So yes, Krishna, that sounds really interesting. And let me now move ahead to the coming up segment. Here we are, and all of the specially curated activities that we have in today's segment. Let me bring that about here. So whatever is the genre that we are going to look out for today, I'm going to um, give you details about some of the quintessential elements that you would want to involve into your story. And these are basically elements that you cannot do without if you want your novel or your book or even your short piece of story to fit into a particular category, right? So that's one of those elements there, the essentials. And then of course we will be also delving deeper into all the expert tips that I can offer you for writing that particular genre. And On public demand, we have invent a story segment today, so do stay tuned in here. We will be showing you some pictures, and on the spot you can show up your creativity and give me a story idea in the chat box here. Yes, so that's going to be interesting too. And apart from that, we have the guess the movie segment, the google it segment, which aims at increasing your vocabulary. And of course, we have the icebreaker questions that will keep popping up every now and then. And finally, we have the recommendation of the day, some plot building tips on how you can be writing an interesting plot for your story, and also a crossword, as well as finally, when we wrap up the show, before that, I would be taking you through a quick roundup of all that we have learned in today's episode so that it stays fresh in your memory. And that's how we wrap the episode, right? Yes, this is what we have curated for all of you people today. And let me again go back to the comment section and read some of your comments here. Okay, so Krishna writes to me here that it's about a person who goes into space and finds the secret to immortality. That's what I guessed. But when he comes to Earth, he is arrested. Okay, sounds interesting, Krishna. And yes, welcome. It's totally our pleasure because suggestions from you all um, are really valued, and that's why we brought back one of the forgotten segments, which was invent a story, right? So do stay tuned in here, and let's have a fun time with today's episode as well. Fun and learning go both hand in hand in planet spark here. And so yes, so we are going to deep dive into this episode of today, and the next thing that I'm going to let you know in on is the first golden question, which is what's the genre, right? So if you remember last episode, I promised you that I'll be back with horror, and that is one of the speculative fiction genres that we are going to explore out for today. And of course, when we hear the word horror itself, we understand that it is something which is written to frighten our audiences away. Yes, and that is the, I think, the interesting part of this genre is the fear factor, right? So whenever you, even if you ponder about this, then fear is something that it triggers some kind of a physical and an emotional response in us humans. But while reading a horror story, I know all of us would be actually thrilled to read a scary story, isn't it? Do write to me in the chat box here and let me know if that is right or not, because I think the kind of chill that it sends across your skin is something that we all want to feel and go through, right? While we are reading a scary story, it is a different kind of a thrill that fascinates us, right? So horror is the genre that we are going to look out for today, and we will be talking about how you can be inducing that horror in your story, and how you can scare the socks off your readers by writing an interesting and frightening story, right? So that's the broader genre for today. And let me also tell you that apart from the genre that we are speaking about, that is horror, the subcategory in horror is demonic possession, right? So that's the subgenre. So how does the horror get evoked? It gets evoked because of a demonic possession, right? So that's the focal point of our story. And this is a type of like plays into the unknown fear factor of human experiences. And demons, let me tell you, they have been a part of storytelling from time immemorial, right? We have seen a lot of mythological stories as well around demons, and how they actually induce the fear in people, right? So demons are going to represent evil in more forms than one in our story. It could be mythical, it could be religious, and also supernatural, right? So do stay tuned in here. We will be looking at how we can be writing a story or a short piece even on this concept of demonic possession, right? So that's the subgenre of the day. And let me take you through the first icebreaker question. Here it is. It says, if you could be a millionaire, then what would be the first thing that you would buy? So think about this. You have a lot of money now. And what is it that you're going to think of buying first? right? Something to ponder about. Amuse me with your answers, and let me see what all you write back to me. Okay, I'm going to wait for your answers here. Great. Um, Dafia, hello there. Thanks for that emoji, the love emoji, and for all the love that all of you shower in the chat box here. Great. Okay, so I think all of you are still thinking and pondering on this question, is it? I don't see any answers coming up there. Okay, so the first one, Krishna tells me she okay, so she would like to buy an iPad. Beautiful. Um, a mansion is what I get here from Dafia. Lovely. A royal mansion, maybe, isn't it? Yes. So we have turned into a millionaire, and what is it that we are going to think of buying? That's the fun question that we have in our icebreaker segment. And I get iPad and a royal mansion, a race car. Wow. Lovely. So, yes, a race car. And there's another interesting option that we can be buying. And Varun tells me that he would like to buy an aircraft. Okay. That's interesting. A chartered aircraft only for yourself, right? Lovely. So, thanks again for all of these answers here. We are really, really imaginative, isn't it? And let's get going to the next segment. We saw that the subcategory was demonic possession, and now I'm going to take you through the first topic for the day, which is establishing the essentials, right? So, here again, for writing a horror, demonic possession horror story, we need three definite elements that we are going to definitely plant into our story. And let me showcase all of these three elements here onto the screen. There it is. The first one is the demon. Then we have the other characters in our story, and of course, the setting of our story. So, setting and the characters, both of these elements are, elements that we have to introduce in each and every story that we write, because that's what is going to take the story forward, right? So let's look into each of these elements one by one and understand in greater detail what is it that we can be introducing in each of these segments in our story, right? So the first essential element is the demon, and since we are talking about a demonic possession, there has to be obviously a demon who is going to be the prime focus in our story, right? So now let me tell you that it could be a ghost, or maybe a soul, or a demon that possesses the victim, or maybe the protagonist is the one who gets possessed. And of course, in every triggering point that we are going to write in our story, we will also talk about the motive that the demon has for his actions, right? So your story is going to be a lot more compelling if your character is possessed by an interesting scary entity, right? So you can give a whole lot of vivid descriptions to your audiences. Be imaginative, stir up your imagination, and come up with a demonic character which is more than scary, right? And maybe you can talk about an angle where the demon wants to not only wreak havoc, but maybe the demon also wants to lead a regular life, and that is why that's the primary motive of them getting into this protagonist's character, right? So that could be one of the cases. And you can also think about all the other angles that you would want to explore for your story, give it your unique spin. Or maybe you would prefer to work entirely outside the world of ancient evils, and all of these um, demons that we see in mythological stories. If you do not want to tread along the same path, then you can have a unique spin of yourself and make your story set apart from all of the scary stories that we have read till now, right? So it's all up to you as a creative writer. But of course, this is a broad guideline that we are offering you. There is going to be a prime focus in our story, who is the demon, and this demon is going to possess either the protagonist or any of the other characters in your story, but that is what the story is going to revolve around, right? So that's the first essential element that we are going to introduce into our story, right? And the second element that we have here is the characters. So let me tell you that the protagonist can be the one person who is experiencing this horror firsthand, and why and by whom the protagonist gets possessed. That also could be the background story that you're going to build up in your plot. And of course, some of the stories, they get by with a handful of characters and never need more characters, right? But while you're talking about a demonic possession or a horror story, right, there have to be a whole mix of people who are going to experience that horror, so that you can be writing about their experience in your story. So they are going to form your voice, also their point of view, or their narrative is the one that you're going to write about in your story. Yes. So if you have a whole mix of characters, then it's going to make your story even more interesting. And that's why when there are a lot of suspects involved, then the impact of the story garners greater interest. And that's why maybe you can add a whole lot of array of characters into your story. You can talk about people who have gone on a vacation maybe, and how they meet different mix of cultures, people coming from different backgrounds, and they meet all of these people there, and how the story goes forward, right? So that could be one of the angles. But of course, you can also talk about a normal gated community, maybe, where all the people living in the neighborhood are your characters, right? So totally depends on what is the setting of your story. And that brings us to the third element that we have as the quintessential elements for writing a demonic horror, demonic possession horror story. And let me take you through the setting of the story again. You would have seen in movies as well, whenever there is a horror scene playing out, the lighting is troubled. There is a dark corridor, maybe, and curtains are fluttering. There is a whole lot of wind coming in from the window, and that is a lot of potential for a scary adventure. Yes. So think about all of these things, which is going to actually tap that human fear. And you can include all of that in your setting. Even something as innocuous as creaking floorboards, right? That also could be threatening. Yes. So the shrill sound of that creaking floorboard can also take us to that unwanted area or unwanted territory of fear and thrill. Yes. So think about this in the right context. What are all of the elements that you're going to include in your setting, which is going to scare your audiences, right? And that is what is the skill of a creative writer. You need to come up with bigger sentences, so that your readers um, take time to come to a conclusion of that whole sentence. Yes. And generally, when we talk about the setting, then the scene could be in an abandoned area. It could be in a dilapidated house, maybe, or you can talk about a mansion or a castle where the demon once resided when he was alive. And there could be a possible motive of why they are trying to wreak havoc in the lives of the protagonist, right? So all of these are the various things that you're going to explore for your story. And as per your creative ability and creative thinking, you're going to come up with the setting of the story, which is going to be threatening and frightening to your audiences, right? So these are the essentials here. We spoke about the prime character, which is the demon. We spoke about the protagonist, who is going to experience the fear firsthand. And of course, the third element, which is the most imperative element in any story, which is the setting of the story, right? Now, after all of these elements, let me take you through the second icebreaker question. And are you all ready to answer this one? Here it is. If you could eat a whole lot of ice creams, then which is the flavor that you would choose to eat? So there it goes, a food question, and that too on ice cream flavors. And I'm expecting to see a lot of answers here, because yes, Who doesn't love ice creams, isn't it? Great. So do let me know your answers in the chat box. What is that one flavor that you would like to have a whole lot of ice creams of? Yes. Uh, okay, so we have Dafia, give me chip chocolate. Lovely. And there's strawberry coming up there. Ravi Kumar, he says, uh, what is that? I think that's a typo. Fruit and nut, okay. Krishna says butterscotch, lovely. What else? We have berry come up there. Cookies and cream. Oh, yes, that's a wonderful option and a lovely combination as well, isn't it? Uh, chocolate, vanilla. Thanks a lot for all of these answers there. I can see butterscotch, vanilla, chocolate, chip chocolate, cream and cookies, fruit and nuts. Lovely. That's a wonderful array of ice cream flavors that we can choose from, right? Yes. Okay, so with that, with those answers there, let me move ahead to the next segment. And this is all about expert tips in establishing the essentials that we just now spoke about, right? So, the first expert tip that we have for all of you wonderful people is that whenever, we are faced with this concept or idea of an uncertain situation, something that we have never experienced before, then we really struggle to comprehend what's before us, right? And the first response that our body or our emotional state or well being gives us is one of fear. Yes, uncertainty is always related with fear, right? So, one of the typical first reactions to the unknown is fear, and that is why introducing surprising and unbelievable elements in your horror story works really very well to instill that fear in your readers. Yes, so keep a lot of plot twists in your story, surprise them all along the story, and your creative writing should be such that your readers are always wanting to know more, right? So there is a feeling of uncertainty, there is a feeling of wanting to know more, there's eagerness and there's curiosity, and all along they're also feeling the fear along with the protagonist of our story who is experiencing the fear and the whatever havoc the demonic possession is creating, all of that the protagonist is experiencing that firsthand. Yes, so he is going to pass on that fear to your readers, and this is one of our creative writing abilities, right? So have a lot of unbelievable and surprise elements in your story, which is going to really run that chill down the spine of your readers. Yes, so with that, let me move ahead to the second expert tip. And here, whenever we are writing about maybe a young adult horror story, then it has to be fun to read, right? Whenever we are reading any story for that matter, the first few pages determine whether we are going to get grabbed by the book or not. Yes, so when you're writing this especially for young adults, then the span or the interest level that they have is really fluttering. It's not too much, isn't it? So you need to quickly move the story around. It has to be fast paced and should be funny as well, so that it grabs their attention. And technically you can also write short chapters full of easy to read words, so that there is movement that keeps on happening while people are reading the story, and give younger audiences fast paced plot driven stories that are full of cliffhangers. Yes, so they are going to feel more and more inclined towards your book if you're going to do that. Short chapters is the key here, and that is really going to grab your audience's attention. Yes, so these were the two expert tips that we have for you while you're writing a horror story meant for a particular category or a group. Yes, now with that, let me move ahead to the first google it word for today. And the google it word is, there it comes, it is inclined, right? So inclined normally would mean kind of a sloping, something which is kept in a sloping position. Yes, that is the literal meaning of inclined. But the way it can be also used is, to say that. If I say that he or she is inclined towards this, then it means that they are wanting to do that particular activity. Yes, they are likely or wanting to do that activity. Yes. So whenever you show particular interest towards a talent, then it means that you're inclined towards that art. Yes, so that's how inclined can also be used. And that's how we used it in one of our slides here, which spoke about the expert tip. Let me take you back to that. The audiences will feel more inclined to read your book, so they would be more and more interested to read your books. That's the meaning of the word inclined in this sense here. So do check out the word in Google and come up with your interpretations, and do jot the word down in your Google It journal. Okay, so we have Krishna Shivnani here. Give me another comment. Taking a person's side. Of course, yes, that could also be one of the meanings. So inclined could also mean taking someone's side. He is inclined towards uh, Sam. So that means that he's taking their side, right? So yes, that could also be one of the interpretations. And yes, Varun, inclined also means to be to something which is kept in a sloping position. Maybe that's the literal meaning. And with that, let me move ahead to the next segment. Here we go. The next icebreaker question: if you could be invisible for a day and do whatever you wish for, then what would you do? That's the next question that we have here in today's episode. And do let me know, if you have the supernatural ability to be invisible for a day, then what is it that you're going to do? And let me tell you, after this icebreaker question, we are going to go into the Invent a Story segment. So do stay tuned in here. Um Yes, okay. So we have the first comment there. Dafia tells me that she's going to play pranks with her friends. Of course, that's going to be really interesting. And Sarim tells me that he would like to help the poor. Wow, that's a wonderful thought. You go invisible for a day and help the poor. Very good. Krishna says that there are so many things that she can't even think of one. Interesting. Okay, so maybe when something gets to you, then you can write to me here in the chat box. Yes, lovely. So let's move ahead to the most interesting part of today's episode. It is invent a story on the spot. And since we are talking about demonic possession, that's the hint there. And it is going to be, of course, about the genre that we are speaking about. And I'm going to show you three pictures on the next screen. You need to conjure up a demonic possession horror story by just looking at those three pictures. We will be also aiding you with some of the questions that, when answered, can lead you to one of the ideas of your stories, right? So here it is, the three pictures all coming together in one. There you can see three pictures there, and let me take you through the pictures one by one. The first one, we see a boy who is playing alone, and that could really be dangerous. So let your creative juices flow, and try giving me an idea of the story in the chat box here. Right, and now he finds a doll buried in the ground. He's trying to pull that out. So we don't know yet if that's a reward or a curse. And the third picture that we have here, the boy wasn't himself anymore. So that's really scary, isn't it? A scary thought to have. So one of the boys was playing all alone, and that was dangerous ground. And he found a doll buried underground. When he tries to pull that out, till now, we do not know whether that's going to be a reward or a curse. And the third thing that we see here is that the boy wasn't himself anymore. So you can talk about the reactions that the boy sends, and also what is it that evoked this transformation in him. And let me also take you through the questions that we have here. So these questions are going to aid you into the correct path. You can think through all of these questions and come up with an idea for your story that you can refine. So here it is. The first question is, whose doll was it? Where did the boy go to play? Why was he alone? What happened after he touched the doll? Who was possessing the doll and why? That's an important question there, which needs to be answered. That's because it's going to be all about the demon, which is the prerequisite in our story, right? And then, um, what did the boy do after being possessed? That's one of the other questions here. Um, how will he get rid of the ghost or the doll? How traumatized will he be after this incident? So we can totally get that, right? The trauma that he's going to go into. And finally, um, all that we want to know is what happens in the end and how he saved himself, right? So these are some of the questions that we have here. Sushma, thanks a lot for that love emoji there. And so these are the questions that we have, which is going to really help you in brainstorming in your head for that one idea for your story. And then maybe you can refine the idea to create a story which is in the demonic possession horror genre, right? So let me take you back through all of these pictures again so that you have a better idea. There it is. A boy is playing alone in the garden, or whatever place that is, whatever the setting you would want to choose for your story. And that is a really dangerous ground. He was playing alone and he found a doll which was buried underground. And after he pulls out that doll, his actions have changed. He has um, transformed and he is no more the way he was, right? So that is those are the three pictures that we have for you today. And this is invent a story on the spot that we are playing. And if you can think about a story on the spot, do write to me about your idea. And let's create a story here. Okay, let me go back to my comment section here. Sushma says, thanks a lot for that, Sushma. Great to know that you love these episodes. And we have Gajanan saying hi here. Hello there, Gajanan. Thanks for dropping into the live here. We are in the Invent a Story segment. And I think all of you are trying to write the story out to me here. So I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds more so that, you have a story idea for me. And it's going to be really interesting to see what you're going to come up with, right? We definitely have a story there with the boy getting possessed with that doll. So now we have to think about why is that doll possessed? Who is the person behind the doll getting possessed? And what's the motive behind it, right? So whatever we spoke about in our essential segment, these are going to be the elements that we would be thinking about to write our story and to take it forward, right? So yes, we have one of the comments there. Let me rephrase that. Dafia tells me that mm, okay. So yes, so Dafia tells me that the doll was possessed by a lady who did not have children, and she was actually a good demon. Is that so, Dafia? So, a good demon possessing that child, although he is actually traumatized because his mind is not under his control. That could be also another angle that you can be exploring. That's a good one. And of course, you can have all of these surprise elements and the cliffhangers, the plot twist planted into your story. But then finally, in the ending, you can showcase that particularly it was a good demon and it was not meant to do any harm to the boy, right? So that's a twist to the story here. And thanks a lot for that comment there, Dafia. That makes total sense. And Gajanan tells me that he can't understand anything. So, Gajanan, actually, you have joined us late here in the live. I come live every day at 6 p.m. The topic that we are discussing today is fiction story writing, and the genre is demonic possession in horror. Right. So, now we are in a segment where, with these three pictures, I want my audience, with these three pictures here, I want my audience to come up with a story idea that they can take further and refine it to make it into a full blown story, right? So that's what the segment is playing out. And now, if you have any ideas that come up to you on the spot about what is the story that you can give me from these three pictures, then the comment box is open here and you can write your comments there. And let me now read out what Krishna has given me a big para, so I'm going to put it out here. I'm writing a story in which the doll is of Adolf Hitler and the boy is the son of Stalin. Hitler, it was not suicide, it was skill. Okay, so Krishna here is actually blending history along with horror and demonic possession, right? So that's a different genre altogether again. So it's a different blend of genres that you're trying to do there, Krishna. An interesting take at that one too. Yes. So you can also come up with why did the doll possess the boy, and some other relevant questions that your readers would want to know. And let me tell you that no cliffhangers are allowed in a horror story. Even though for the starting segments, even if you have cliffhangers, you're supposed to end the story with a plausible explanation of all the scenes and the scenarios that played out in your story. Yes, a very good try, a very good attempt, Krishna. And Krishna says that Dafia wrote the story of a typical Bollywood movie. Yes, that is true. And I love both of the stories here. If anyone else wants to write a story or give me a gist of what is the story that they would like to take forward, do write to me here. I'll definitely read out all of your comments. So by now I have got only two comments there, and both of them are interesting angles to explore for our horror story, right? So let's move ahead after that invent a story segment, which was really fun. So we can really imagine and come up with stories on the spot, right? So just think about it. If you give it more time, then how creatively you can be taking that story forward, isn't it? So yes, with that fun segment, let us now move ahead to the next segment, which is here it is, the movie title trivia. So back to back, we have another segment playing out, which is a fun segment. And here I'm going to show you some pictures, and what you need to do is guess the popular demonic possession horror movie titles. Yes. So here is the first picture. Do try to guess if you can There's also comedy involved in this, so that's what each of the genres that we see, they sometimes are overlapped, right? So this is one of the movies which actually you can categorize it into sci-fi and horror comedy. And do you know the name of the movie? Is that okay? One second. Krishna says okay. Is it fine now, Krishna? Can you see the video? I think I'm not sure. I can see myself here. Do let me know if you can see me now and if I'm audible. You can give me a show of hand there, a thumbs up maybe, and I can understand. Okay, so let me give you the name of this movie. It is Frankenweenie. Yes. So let's move ahead to the next one. Here we go. What is the name of this movie? Yes. So Sushma confirming that I am audible and clearly visible here. Thanks a lot for that, Sushma. And the name of the movie, the next picture is already there onto the screen. Do we know the name of this movie? Another um fantasy movie, maybe. Um, so I can see question marks coming up there. Okay, so let me reveal the name of that movie there. Here it is. The name is Beetlejuice, right? And moving ahead to the next one, here we go. There, that's a popular one. Are we getting some answers here? And yes, that is correct. It is Monster House. Okay, great. With that, two more left now. Two more to go. Here we go to the next one. There it is. What is the name of this movie that you can see on the screen? Famous Five is not the correct answer. I'm sorry. This is a Bollywood movie. Okay, so let me give you that answer there. It is Lakshmi. And last one to go. Here we are. What's the name of this Hollywood movie? Quite a popular one. I think I will get some answers to this one. It is a 2008 film and a fantasy adventure, you can say. And there are these twin brothers. They move into a okay, if I name that estate, then the name of the movie will also get revealed. So let me tell you that twin brothers, they move to an estate with their family, and they find themselves surrounded by magical and magical creatures, and that's what brings about the adventure in this movie. It's an interesting movie. So I don't see any answers coming up there, so I'm going to let out the answers. So yes, it was Spiderwick Chronicles. That's the name of this movie. And these movies were not actually demonic possession, but some had horror elements playing. But of course, it was a blend of fantasy and comedy and horror, right? So, yes, with that, we come to the end of our segment for today. So, Krishna, did you get the name of the movie? It was Spiderwick Chronicles. Okay, so let's move ahead to the next segment, which is plotting the plot. And here again, we have three important engaging elements that you need to introduce into a demonic possession horror story, right? So, three of these elements coming up there. We have the horror history, the trap, and finally the way out. So, horror history is nothing but what is the background towards all of this horror or the monster or villain, whoever you're going to call that character by. So, what is the history or what is the backstory of that monster? What's the motive behind them acting in a particular way? And that is going to set the background for your story, right? Now, this is also important for your readers to know as to why is all of that horror evoked in the first place? How did the horror get activated in the first place? Yes. So a good original story makes the progression of the evil interesting and helps the protagonist understand how to defeat the monster or the villain, right? So there has to be a backstory. We need to talk about the horror history and progress our story forward by giving interesting insights to our readers. Yes. So with that, the next important element is the trap, right? So you're going to showcase how your different characters fall into the trap of the demon and how the horror is activated. Why did the protagonist go into that haunted place in the first instance? Yes. And get into the mind of the victim, try to tap the human fear potential, and write about all of these scenarios, which is going to actually thrill and incite your audiences. Yes. So that is the second important element, the trap. And with that, we also have um, Tripti Kiran, give me a like there in Facebook. Thanks a lot for that. And let's move ahead to the next um, element here in writing an interesting plot for our story, and that is the way out, right? So like in every story, the denouement, the climax of the story is really a crucial part of the story, and where we find that all of the loose strings, they are tied together and we get to know what happens finally, isn't it? So it's the big reveal, the mystery is getting revealed, the pieces of the puzzle have been put together, and we are solving the mystery that we had all along, right? So questions like how and why did the spirit leave the characters, or how did the characters find the way out, these are important questions that need to be answered in the final climax of the story. So see to it that you do not give cliffhangers to your audiences, and I will come to that. What are cliffhangers? I will come to that in the expert tips segment, right? But for now, we are going to go ahead to the next Google it word, and that is pray. Yes. So do check out the word pray. This is Prey. It is not Pray, right? So that's the word pray, and do check out what it means and find out for yourself as a homework, and jot the word down in your Google it journal, right? So that's the second word that we have for today, pray. And moving ahead to the expert tips segment, let me tell you that the first expert tip that we have here is all about cliffhangers. And let me tell you, this is a literary device where the readers are compelled to find out what happens next in the story, right? So we do not want our readers to be hanging from that cliff. We do not want to keep our story abrupt in the ending, right? So we can of course introduce these cliffhangers in the starting part of the story, and writing great cliffhangers is key to making your book a page turner. Yes. So it's going to be compelling for your audiences to turn the page quickly and to find out what's going to happen next, isn't it? So that is how you elicit the response of suspense in your story. So plant small twists and turns, and it's a good idea to maintain a spooky atmosphere all throughout the story, and keep your young readers engaged by directing them away from what they might think will the ending be. Yes. So but at the ending of the story, don't introduce these cliffhangers. We need to give a proper plausible explanation for all the scenarios that played out in our story at the ending of the book. Yes. So that's the second expert tip there. Yes, so Krishna has already done the homework. She says an animal who kills another animal for food. That's lovely. That is the meaning of prey. Yes. Okay. Good job done there. And let's move ahead to the second expert tip. Now, here you can also heighten the thrill, or the fear that your audiences are experiencing. You can heighten that by writing paragraphs with longer sentences. Now, let me tell you how that works or how that matters. So if you're going to write a short sentence, the period between these two sentences, the time gap that your audiences are going to get, that's going to provide a natural pause for your readers to take a breath. But if you stretch out your sentences, you build anticipation for the reader, which they might not even realize until they reach to the end of the sentence, right? So that's another trick that creative writers use while they want to keep the story fast paced, but at the same time they want to induce that suspense and curiosity in the readers. Yes, so keep your paragraphs and sentences longer, but of course there has to be a perfect blend or a perfect balance, because if you keep on writing bigger sentences and bigger paragraphs, that doesn't make sense for the scene that is playing out, then it's going to get boring for your audiences, right? So have a blend there. And using all of these tactics, your reader is going to get immersed into your horror story, and it's going to make them feel a connect or a heart pounding connection with the characters of your story, right? So that's another expert tip there. Have longer sentences in your paragraph so that you can heighten the suspense and the curiosity in your readers. Yes. How did you like that expert tip? Do write to me in the chat box here. And with that, I'm going to move ahead to the next segment, which is the Google It word tactics, right? So let me tell you what tactics means. It is kind of an action or any strategy that you carefully plan out to achieve an end result, right? So that is a tactic. So if you're going to just like in this expert, in the case of this expert tip that I gave you, that you can heighten the curiosity or the suspense for your readers by introducing longer sentences, that is another tactic, another trick that you can imply, right? So that was the word tactic there. Do jot that word down in your Google It journal. And I can see a lot of thumbs ups come up there. So you all loved that expert tip. Thanks a lot. And with that, I'm going to move ahead to the recommendation of the day. Yes. So here it is, the movie named Mask. That is the recommendation of the day for all of you today. And let me tell you, this movie is all about a bank clerk, and this person discovers a magical mask which contains the spirit of Loki, and his entire life changes, right? So, what happens when he wears that mask, and how he also, we see that, he robs a bank because of the influence of that mask. That's also something that happens in that story, and the plot revolves around that. So that is the adventure that we go through in this movie. Wearing that mask, the magical mask, he transforms, he gets transformed, and his entire life changes, right? So there's a lot of adventure and fantasy elements that we see in this movie here. That's the recommendation of the day. And with that, we come to the end of our episode for today. I hope you all had fun watching this episode. And now, before I leave you for the day and I call it a day, let me take you through a quick roundup. The name of the segment is At a Glance. And here, first things first, we have the essentials. So, we are going to include one of the demons in our story. There's going to be a whole bunch of characters as well. And we're also going to talk about the setting, right? So, setting will not only mean the physical place that we are planting our story in, but also the different scenarios that play out, right? So, if we want to frighten our audiences, then we can talk about the creaking floorboard. We can talk about the wind that is playing out in full force, and how the curtains are shuttering, the lights are flickering, there is a dim lit corridor maybe, or a dark alley somewhere, right? So all of these are going to be the setting for our horror story. And the plot building pointers, um, we are going to talk about the horror history, that is, what is it that triggered this horror in the first place, and then all about the trap, how are people falling prey to this fear and this horror. And finally, we get to reveal what is the way out to all of this chaos that is happening in our story. How can the protagonist overcome all of these situations, and what does he do to finally get rid of that demon is fine what we are wanting to know in the denouement of our story, right? So these were the plot building pointers. And for now, I would also like to introduce the project work segment, where we also had the invent a story segment today. So you can maybe take inspiration from that segment and try writing a short story or a short piece on demonic possession horror story. So do take that first step today in writing a horror story. And always, like I tell you, um, practicing to make your craft perfect is something that all of us should be doing. And try putting pen to paper and writing your first draft of demonic possession horror story, right? And with that, we come to the end of our episode for today. And I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. But tomorrow, being Saturday, we are going to meet you with a fun episode. It is a Saturday special, which is the breakdown of a classic. So, tomorrow, I would be coming with one of the classic stories, and I will break it down into the title, the author, all about the genre, how you can be writing one by yourself. And we will also be letting you know on the story as well, right? So I'm going to also narrate the story to you. Yes. So it's a Saturday special episode. Do stay tuned in with me tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. India time. Krishna says bye here. Thanks a lot for dropping in, Krishna, and all of the others who are watching me in the live. Um, so, yes, have a great time. See you all tomorrow. Bye bye.